So for this third scenario, the network is down. We're going to do a little bit something different. We're actually going to configure DNS relay on the router so that our router can act as a DNS server. And then we can actually point our clients to use our router as the DNS server instead of having to configure some external server on our workstations in our network. So to do this exercise, I'm going to first open up a command prompt and verify that my router currently cannot be used to do DNS lookups. And to do that, I'll do an NS lookup. I'll set my server to be 10.0.0.1. And now if I do a lookup for www.pluralsight.com, we are not going to get a response. The server just won't respond at all. So let's go SSH into our router at 10.0.0.1. We'll log in. And now what I can do is I can go into config mode. And really, it's just a matter of adding 3 commands. The first command is we want to add in IP DNS server. And what that does is it turns my router into a DNS server for me, which will allow it to act either as a standalone DNS server, which I can manually add entries into. It's beyond the scope of this content for the moment. But what it'll also do is if it doesn't have an entry statically inside of the router, we can use the IP name server and then point it to 8.8.8.8 and 8.8.4.4 as the backup. And now what will happen is if I make a request of my router as a DNS server, my router won't have any entries in it locally, so it'll then forward on my DNS request to some other DNS server, in this case 8888 or 8844, to get resolution. The last command I have to add on here is IP domain lookup. And now, if I go back to my command prompt, I should have some success here. So let's try that again. I'm still in NS lookup. I'm still have my server pointed to 10.0.0.1. Let's see if I can get pluralsight.com to resolve now. And now I'm resolving pluralsight.com into the correct IP addresses, which means that my router is now successfully acting as that DNS relay for me. So what I can do now is I can actually go back into my DHCP configuration. So it has the 10.0.0.1 address as the DNS server instead of 8888. If I want to quickly find where that configuration is, I can do show run and then do a space and then the pipe, which is the shift key, and then the key right above enter or return. And then I'm going to say begin with IP DHCP pool. And what that'll do is it'll show me the configuration, but it's going to start the configuration right where it says IP DHCP pool. So we have a nice clean way of looking at that. So what I'll do then is I'll just select IP DHCP pool, right click to copy, and then we'll go into that configuration. I'm going to say no to the DNS server at 8888, and then we're going to put back in the DNS server at 10.0.0.1. We'll exit out of this. We can even save the config, copy, run, start. And now what I'll do is I go back to my command prompt. Let's exit out of NS lookup. If I do an ipconfig /all, because we want to see that DNS server, we're going to see that my DNS server is still set to 8.8.8.8. The reason for that is that the lease time on my DHCP lease has not expired. It won't expire until a day later. Today's Monday the 17th. It's not going to expire until Tuesday the 18th. So I'm not going to re-request that lease for probably 12 hours yet. So what I can do is I can force my workstation to release the DHCP. To do that, I say ipconfig /release, and that will get rid of my IP address. If I do ipconfig /renew, that will re-request an IP address from the DHCP server. And this time, it did give me the same IP address, which is not a problem. But now if I do ipconfig /all, we'll see that my DNS server has been changed from 8888 to 10.0.0.1. If I want to test now to see if DNS is working correctly, what I want to do is I want to flush any DNS entries that are stored locally on my workstation. And I can do that by issuing the command ipconfig/flush DNS. And what that'll do is whenever I go to a website like pluralsight.com, it will store that entry inside of DNS and just look locally for it, unless I'm using the nslookup command and going specifically to a server. So here I'm using ipconfig to flush the DNS. That way, when I go to a web browser and I go to www.pluralsight.com, we do a fresh DNS lookup to our new DNS server, and everything works great.